Well, hello again, everybody. Today, thanks to Meg Sweeney, who asked me to do this, I'm going to do a small chapter on low-tech communication. Now, low-tech communication can be helpful to a lot of people, even people who are actually very verbal, but generally I think most times it's going to be around people with what I call, not just me, severe communication impairment, which, by the way, is the only thing that I will actually say as a descriptor of a person with disability who's quite significantly communication impaired. I can't talk about an intellectual disability because I have no way of proving it, and I don't believe in it anyway. So, severe communication impairment says this person cannot speak or use verbal communication. And it might also be useful for people whose communication is not quite intact. You know, there's lots of it, but not enough to really get across a point or whatever. Or to supplement people who've got quite good verbal communication. I think one of the big things I'd like to say first is, you know, we have a big investment in verbal communication in our culture. We think this is the way that we know. If only people could speak, we'd know so much more about them. I don't know about you, but have you got a partner that when you ask them what's wrong, they say nothing? Even though there clearly is. So sometimes I think, even though we think that verbal communication would be so helpful, and maybe it would be at different points, I think we really need to understand and appreciate how much as human beings, with or without disabilities, we do a lot of interpreting of what people are saying to us through a whole range of things that are not verbal, including the gestures that people make, their facial expressions, their body movements, eye gaze, and even leading you to what it is that the person might actually want. So I really want us to understand that actually it is vitally important to take non-verbal communication seriously and to not say about people, he doesn't communicate. Please don't say that. It's not true. The person's communicating continually. So the little boy this morning who's nearly 4 doesn't speak at all. He communicates constantly. It's just a little miracle to watch him telling people what he needs and telling people what's going on and agreeing or not agreeing and whatever. It's going on all the time. So these strategies are primarily for people who have got a very severe communication impairment, but they may be very helpful for people who can speak quite a lot, but who maybe can't follow instruction because they might have a movement difference or a difficulty in actually processing those kinds of things. So here we go. So obviously the first one is it's really wonderful if a person can get a really good yes and no strategy, a way to say yes or no. That is a wonderful thing. Now the fact of the matter is, if you actually encourage a person to use a symbol or a gesture to say no, even yes or no, even if that person didn't mean it at the time, if you just continually help them by when you ask them a question and they say yes, doing whatever it was that you offered. Pretty soon, because people are smarter than we think, that person will start to use that gesture. So you can start building the process of having a reliable yes and no if the person, even if the person hasn't got one now. Now, I have to say for my own son, he has a very good yes. He can say yes, it's very clear. He doesn't always say no, so in the absence of yes, I think he's saying not sure or no. And by the way, we have to wait quite a long time after we've asked the question for the yes to come or whatever. So after we've asked Belle that question, Belle, would you like to have some coffee? Just make it up as I go along. So let's do it. This is how it goes. Bellen, would you like some coffee? Coffee, Val? Yes or no? Yeah. Great. Okay, I'll get you some coffee. So for a lot of people can get some words out, but we don't wait long enough to help that person get to the point. And if we don't wait long enough, the person is never going to think that they actually will put their work in because we can't be relied upon. So one of the first things I think if you're trying to build some communication around your work with an individual or with your family member, remembering to slow things down is actually a very, very important thing. And when we're trying to build a yes-no response, of course we can do a lot of things. We can actually have a gesture. A friend of mine does this, means yes. This is like, yeah, maybe. This means yeah. So interesting to see how that might work. You could have a yes-no card, a sheet of paper that you put yes or no on and the person points to. It could be a button for people to press, or it could be Makaton, yes and no. If the person learned that at school and they've got that already, why would you reinvent the wheel? Just get people using that consistently and asking people and waiting for people to answer back. You may actually have to physically or coactively move the person's hand through that process for a little while until they get the idea, if they don't have that already. But yes or no is like a basic, isn't it, for most of us, about what we think that we might need. The second thing that I think is really helpful for some people, well, almost everyone really, is a gesture dictionary. This is the most fabulous low-tech thing you can imagine. It's one piece of paper ruled into three columns. The first one says, when so-and-so does this, so when so-and-so puts their hand up and goes forward, up and down, this means yes, you do whatever you offered. When so-and-so puts her hands in her mouth and starts to create saliva, it means that she's building anxiety. You are required to reassure her, offer her the opportunity to go outside if that's what she needs to do, make her a cup of tea, offer to help her make a cup of tea, turn the lights down so that she can rest a little and reset. Pretty handy, huh? If that was in a person's induction kit, if everybody had one of those, when a new person comes on, and even when we're doing the the double-ups to help people learn how to work with someone, we often forget the really important things. It's great to have these things, and one of the things that we could do even now, if you're trying to work on this, is put a piece of butcher's paper up in the back of the door. Don't put these things out. Don't turn anyone's house into a special. Don't do that. But maybe in the back of a cupboard, in the door of a cupboard, or at the back of a door, just put something there, or a notebook. And whenever anyone sees something that is a gesture that really communicates something, then you can actually write that down and start to use it. And this is a very legitimate version of communication. Do not be thinking that you're interpreting for people. This is very important. So please, please try and work on those things as much as you can. The third thing I think every person should have, if they've got any kind of regular person coming to support them in particular, is a photo roster. Now, a photo roster can be as simple as a piece of paper, laminated or whatever, with 7 days of the week, and whatever the roster arrangements are, like if there's 2 a day or whatever, they're in there, in the rows, and then the person's photograph and their name is put to that roster. So if David is coming at 2 o'clock on Monday, Wednesday and Friday, David's photograph is in each of those places. And if Kelly comes on Tuesday and Thursday morning, her photographs are put in there. Even better if we actually bring this into the control of the person, as much as that person can do it. If they can put people's names and their photographs onto the roster board, that's even better. If not, they should be present while we do that. It may be 1 day a week. It's one person's role to actually have the roster and put those names on. By the way, just reminding people again and again, wouldn't it be great if people just had the same people coming every week on the same days, pretty much, so they could predict what was happening and people could start to set up routines that made sense for everybody. We won't go there, will we? We just won't go any further than that about that. So a photo roster, it's great. You could make that a bigger thing by making it into a roster and an activity board so that people know what they're doing on every day of the week. So that could be, we're going to the bank on Monday. We're going to go to lunch with Mum on Monday afternoon. Whatever it is, you just put these photographs or symbols or something that means something to the person. And if that person is as much involved in that process of putting things up on that board as possible, that is the optimal. The other thing is, if the roster changes, then it's very important the person is there to change that roster person's name and photo. So we don't just tell the person, this is the thing that we want people to interact with actively, not just have it on the wall. And by the way, let's just make sure we've got a lot of rigour about those rosters. So if the roster changes, do not under any account forget to change it on that board, because we want your son or daughter or the person you're supporting to really trust that roster and know that whoever it says is coming is coming. Remember, we're working with very anxious people. When you're very anxious, the last thing in the world you need is to have someone turn up that you didn't expect. Or maybe you were looking forward to the other person, or whatever. So the rigour attached to these things, even though they look simple, they're very powerful ways of working. And so when we're doing these things, we have to make sure we believe that and have the rigour that we need to make sure that what we're doing will make perfect sense to the person that we're working with in that way. I think I did talk already about slowing down our questions to the timing of the person. And can I say, for my son Val, actually after we started doing this quite a long time ago now, I could see that his he had the answer. It was kind of there in the waiting part of the brain, but getting it from there and out of his mouth was actually the hard thing for him. And so that's when we first started really increasing the time that we waited for that to happen. And I think that does really build confidence in that individual that you will wait. And so therefore they'll put the effort and time in to make sure that happens. The other thing that I think can be very helpful for people who can't stay in sequence, and there's lots of people with big movement differences, that they just really find it difficult to understand where they're going in their day. Now, one little young person I work with, it's very easy for her to sort things out. She just needs information. So for her, it was to sit down with her and write down what her morning routine needed to be. I've spoken about this gorgeous person before who, when I spoke to her about responsibility, because she was going into high school, suddenly bloomed into, yep, we can do this. So she's got her own just written down things. She said she wanted symbols. I think her mum's already organised that, not sure yet. But that means in the morning, no one's telling her what she has to do. She has a list, she ticks it off, or she knows where she is in her process. And often when people look like they're not willing to do things, not because they're not willing, they just can't kind of keep their mind in space. I reckon a lot of people with ADD and ADHD, this is part of the problem, hard for people to kind of keep it all together in that way. So with this activity kind of idea, that could be symbols, photographs, or real objects. And if you actually create a symbol, like if the symbols are what you're going to use, so photographs or whatever, you need to actually do those with that person so they mean something to them. I see a lot of really fabulous looking plans and other things for people where the symbols are there, but they're not the person's symbols. I don't believe this, but if you believe that people can't read, then I don't know what we think they're doing with those symbols. Things I've never seen before. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So we need to be thinking pretty deeply, don't we, about what it is that people need, because I don't think we do, and it shows in the things that we do with people. So, all right, that's the rant over. I'll stop that now. So if you were going to use real-life objects, you could get like like a pegboard, maybe that wide, a bit longer, depending on what it's for, and you're going to do the morning routine. You could analyse what it is that has to happen in the morning in what order. So it could be washing your face, cleaning your teeth, having breakfast, getting dressed, packing your lunch, and packing your port. That's a Queensland thing, by the way, backpack. Packing the port, and then leaving to go to the car. So if you're doing that with real objects, it could be all along a pegboard, and it could be a washer for washing your face. And when the person's washed their face, at the bottom of that little pegboard, there's a done box, D-O-N-E. So as things are done, they're put in the box, and the person goes back to the board for the next part of the sequence, and the next part of the sequence is to brush his teeth. So this will be the toothbrush with a little thing on it, so it can be hung up on there. Takes the toothbrush and does his teeth, puts the toothbrush in the done box, and then it's breakfast. So it might be a breakfast cereal box or whatever is right for that person hanging there. They take that, they go to the cupboard, they get the box, and they use it. And then the next thing might be packing lunch. So it might be their water bottle and their lunchbox or whatever, something to remind them of that. And then to pack their bag, their backpack would be on the thing as well. And then a symbol for going to the car. I'm not sure what that would be. I don't have to think of everything, do I? So when you do that, the person can stay in the sequence and keep things going. So at its most complex, it's with real objects. At its easiest, it's writing it down. And somewhere in between, there are symbols and photographs. But in all of these kinds of strategies, you really do have to make sure that you have included the person in organising these things so that they understand what it is that we're doing. Otherwise, there's some kind of thing that's been organised that doesn't make any sense. By the way, with the roster, many years ago when I was working in services, we did a photo roster for somebody that we worked with, and he kept ripping them up. Now, I don't care. That's the beautiful thing about a low-tech thing, huh? You can have 50 of them, photocopy the original, put the original on the wall in a place that the person can't get. That would be a restricted practice probably, unless of course you had 10 copies of that roster that were available to him that he could get whenever he wanted. But I can tell you that that man used to refer to that roster constantly. He really liked the idea of having it. He's just a deconstructionist, so it was hard for him to keep those things together. He would wreck things he really loved, so we don't have to kind of blame him for that. It's okay. We can just sort that out and accommodate it. So easy, so cheap. Anyway, choices. So we can offer people choices. And I don't want to kind of patronize people, but I'm going to say this. If you offer people a choice, you have to make sure the person can tell you which choice it is. How are they going to tell you? Are you going to give them two objects and they're going to point, or are they going to look with their eyes, or is it going to be a symbol of two choices, whatever? Your togs or the movies, movie ticket, whatever. Whatever it is, you've got to make sure if the person is going to make a choice from these 2, 5, 7, 100 things that you're offering, that whatever you are offering is available on that day. You cannot say to someone after they've opted to go to the movies, oh, sorry, we haven't got any money. We're not doing some kind of like play exercise here. We are exercising rigour and trying to help people work out how to be truly communicative in the world. And the people who are doing that with them have to be competent. I'm nearly swearing now because this is really, really important. So, yes, I think that's going to be enough for today. I'm trying to keep these a bit shorter so people can, hang in there with me. I think we will do some more of these, and let me know if you think this is helpful, because I think that for some people, this is just, low-tech communication 101, but for some other people, it really is, like stuff that they would really would find helpful. So thank you for watching. See you next time. Love you all. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like. Oh, and please make some comments. There's been some good comments coming, so I like that. And there's more I can tell you. If you send me a comment, I can say something back. See ya.